So, Breya, I'm coming back to you. Last year, was it last year or this year?
This year.
It's Christmas, huh? It's January 11th, yeah? That you are here when you did the protest.
Yeah.
We were together. We went to protest against the reproductive health and rights policy to the Ministry of Health. And it's good also to make also the audience understand majority also who are part of this course and are still part of this course, telling the ministry first, they are coming with a policy that is not inclusive, and our constitution mandate requires public participation. And most of the women we serve are us women from informal settlements. And I think also now we can say also we are ASLA women that needs to hold this government accountable, or gender non-conforming who are ASLAs, but not ASLA with the narrative of the current regime. But also the ASLA who deserve good health, ASLA who deserve good reproductive health services. So when you took the petition, which later I'll give him a release also to give our experience in terms of also the challenge that we went also inside the ministry, they did not reach back to us after giving that petition, and the way they intimidated us. We are there present. And then they ended up calling a private meeting. They did not involve us, but we took ourselves there. They suspended for 45 days. And then they put a lot of barriers for us not to access the full implementation. Then they ended up coming to launch the policy without consulting us. And they launched the policy without consulting us. I'm giving this scenario so that also you get a feedback of understanding where we are, which is problematic. Old men making decisions on behalf of women, vaginas, and bodies. Problematic. And it's a government that's supposed to protect us. And now we have had elections. And the regime we have historically and currently, it has evangelical patriarchy, and it has religious leaders who have been also opposing right to reproductive justice or sexual reproductive health and rights, LGBTQ, and abortion. From your experience as an activist working so hard in the US, and we have seen also the Roe versus Wade, and we have seen also the kind of work you've been doing in the US, what can we learn from the US? And and also the fact that you're in this protest, what did you learn from the activists in Kenya?
Oh, okay, so many questions. Where do I start? I want to start with just giving the audience a little information about the US. So this year, Roe fell. Roe was the Supreme Court decision that gave us access to abortion. But I want everybody to know that Roe only said that you had the right to privacy. Roe never said that we had the right to an abortion. And it's really important to understand that the United States never actually said that women had a right to get abortions. That's a myth. They said the decision is between you and your doctor. So when Roe fell, we didn't just lose the right to abortion, we lost the right to privacy. And that opens up women in America to all types of violations, right? So in America, Black women have the highest infant mortality and mortality rate. So you are more likely in the United States as a Black woman to die during pregnancy than any other group in America, even though we're so advanced, right? Black women in America, when you are pregnant, you have the highest homicide rate. Right? You are 4 times more likely to die when you are pregnant in America as a Black person. Having a baby in America is equivalent to taking out a second mortgage, and the average mortgage in America is $3,000. That's how much childcare costs in America, right? Contraception is not free. Birth control, none of that is not free, and the average woman does not have access to it. So I think in a lot of countries, folks have a lot of propaganda about America and it being this state of like freedom and access. None of that is really true. But particularly when Roe fell, one of the Supreme Court justices said in her reasoning for striking it down, she said, we need to have enough babies for our economy. So they admitted in writing that a part of the decision to control our bodies is a direct link to capitalism, right? In the United States, we have to understand it's a predominantly white country. So we have to hold 2 things. We have to understand that as Black women in the United States, we have the right to abortion and contraception. And also there are white people who want to force that on us because they don't want us to have families. So we have to hold both. So what we like to say in our movement is the pregnant person gets the final say no matter what. No matter what it is, when it comes to your body, the pregnant person gets the final say. Not the government, not your spouse, not anyone else. The pregnant person gets the final say. And what I think is interesting is that the United States is also one of the largest funders of contraception in Africa. Why do we think that is? Why is the United States so concerned with the reproduction of Black and African people? Right? Okay. And so it's really important for us in the U.S. to make these connections, because it's not enough for me to protest on the front lines for what we deserve and then not think about what my African sisters also deserve, right? If a politician in the United States says that they're for reproductive justice for Black American women, but then they turn around and put sanctions on Africa, but then they turn around and hoard resources in Africa, but then they turn around and they're colonizers and imperialists of Africa, that's not reproductive justice. So every day in the US, as Black women, we have to ask ourselves this question: do we want freedom for Americans, or do we want freedom for the world? Do we want freedom as Black Americans, or do we want African and Black liberation globally? And we have to push folks in America to see beyond themselves. Mm-hmm. You asked me another question. What was it? Because I'm going on a rant.
So what can we learn in terms of movement organizing? Mm-hmm. But also if you can answer the point when you're saying that sanctions are coming from the US, because currently, what we are seeing is also folks from the US, especially the right wing, funding politicians here in Kenya. Yeah. Like the narrative you are saying, we are seeing politicians saying, like the governor of Murang'a, say, and even the deputy president here in Kenya saying that they are going to give you 6,000 for you to give back. You can imagine now they want to take control over your body as a woman, because they're coming also with the same narrative. You have seen it working in the US, which is very problematic. Who is also like resourcing this kind of narrative to also ensure that Black women, especially poor women, have no right to have their bodily autonomy and integrity. Yeah.
Yeah, and for a lot of African politicians, when Roe fell, they saw that as an opening to do whatever they wanted here. So it's a fueling. And even in the United States, the right wing is funding the right movement here. It's really important to understand that these are the same people that we're talking about in cahoots, like you said. What I think that we can learn is we have to connect our struggles. Every single struggle, everything you all just named on this stage, the same thing is happening in the States. And we have to connect our struggles. We have to be in community with each other. We have to talk to each other. And we have to do it at the grassroots level.
Thank you so much. Both the three of my panelists, Jacinta, Caro, and Breya. And the things that are coming is about connecting our struggle. And the thing also is coming is that movement has to be built from the ground, and investment has to be done from the ground, and that we can't also talk about sexual reproductive health and rights without linking it with GBV, because all these connections are also linking with gender-based violence. So I'd like to throw it back to the audience to hear if you have any questions towards my panel or any comment in terms of accessing sexual reproductive health and rights and GBV. And if there's anything from your movements or the movements you're involved that has worked in accessing or advancing this cause.